Well, a lot happened with the Golden State Warriors today, and as a result, we've got a live show. It's super late on a Monday night. Better late than never. Let's break down what Steve Kerr and Mike Dunleavy Jr. had to say during today's press conference. And the Warriors signed a player. No guarantees he's going to make the final roster, but it's still big news nonetheless, especially when you hear what two of the Warriors legends recently said about him. We're going to break it all down next. This is Locked On Warriors!
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me. Cyrus Saatsaz is going solo tonight on Threads. That is the platform I disseminate my content from. Very simple handle, @DogWild. I'm also on Instagram under the same handle, again, @DogWild. The program remains on Twitter, @LockedOnDubs. Yes, Douglas Mikes. Tonight's show is an example of Locked On Insomniacs. I'm going late. Might be another late show tomorrow with Kyla Mills joining me. I'm going to try to save some of the Rodney McGruder discussion for when she's with me. But there was a press conference today, and that press conference involved two of the most powerful individuals with the Golden State Warriors, head coach Steve Kerr and general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr. There were a lot of questions to be asked of these two, and they faced the music, at least, in the best way they possibly can. Steve Kerr, in my humble opinion, a media savant. Very hard to ask him questions that you want very specific answers to. He always has an answer. And Rebel the Sounds, what up? Kev, what up? Milo DR, is that Dr. Milo? I don't know what you're going with there, but regardless, you are sick of small ball. Why is Kerr so dense? That is look, you've all heard, if you've listened or watched this show since I've taken over, it's been 2 years now. It's kind of crazy. You know my feelings about small ball. I don't like it. You know my feelings on how I thought Kerr handled the situation with this team last year. I didn't like it. It's a fresh slate. It's a clean start. I'm not going to be critical. I'm not going to be judgy until we actually see the product on the court. Before everything starts, I'm with you, though. One of the most fundamental principles in the game of basketball is height matters. And for some reason, the current head coach of the Golden State Warriors, Steve Kerr, is not subscribing to that theory. But there are a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions asked of both the head coach and the general manager today. And what I want to start with is Chris Paul and whether or not he's going to start, because Steve Kerr was asked that question, like naturally a good reporter should. And all these clips today, by the way, I want to sincerely thank NBC Sports Bay Area for posting these on their X account. Saved me a ton of time and trouble. So these are all playing off their Twitter account. Again, thank you for doing the heavy lifting and the laborious duties there. So first things first, Steve Kerr. Who's going to be starting exactly? Because Chris Paul sounds like someone who wants to start. He's never in his entire career come off the bench. So what is Steve Kerr going to do about this situation? He was asked. Here is his answer.
You obviously have your established starting lineup, and you have Chris coming in. Have you thought any more or made any decisions based on starting lineup?
Yeah, I mean, we basically have 6 starters. I mean, the way I look at it, and only 5 can go each night. So I haven't decided yet what we're going to do. I want to see training camp. We're going to try different combinations and take a look. Obviously, all 6 guys are going to play a lot of minutes for us. But, if this is going to work, then everybody has to embrace it, regardless of who's starting and who's not. It only works if the whole team buys in. And I know these guys well. I know 5 of them really well, and I'm getting to know Chris. And one thing I know about all of them is they want to win more than anything. They're an incredibly competitive group, and I'm very confident that we'll figure it out, and the guys will buy in and find a way.
So, in other words, a complete non-answer. And again, Steve Kerr is a master of this, of not giving you answers regardless of what you ask. That is why when people sometimes bring up the topic of, you should get Kerr on the show, you should interview him, you should go mano a mano with a Q&A. Dude, what am I going to get out of Steve Kerr? He's a brilliant human being. I've never once diminished his acumen. If I'm critical, it's more to do with ego and with the potential stubbornness for his own beliefs. Sometimes being placed over what may or may not seem like common sense. But here's one thing I did like in regards to what Steve Kerr was saying regarding Chris Paul. And I'm going to play the soundbite because I love the answer. I'm old school like Chris Paul. I'm old school like Steve Kerr. And here was Steve Kerr talking about how the two communicate.
Mike was talking about the connectivity that he's already seen this summer, especially with somebody like Chris Paul. Brought up him leaving for a 6 a.m. flight to come to a workout. What's been your perspective of Chris this offseason as far as really trying to ingrain himself with everybody?
I really like Chris because he likes phone calls and not texts. So Chris is old school. He wants to talk, and we've had 4 or 5 great conversations this summer. One of the I remember a few years ago pulling him aside after Phoenix beat us in Phoenix, and I told him how much I admired him and his competitiveness and just his basketball intelligence. It's obviously we've had a lot of battles over the years. We did have one game together, the 2015 All-Star game. And I remember him taking over the game in the last 5 minutes and our team won. And like, yeah, that guy would be fun to coach. And so I'm thrilled to coach him. He's one of the great competitors I've ever seen. His command of the game, the way he controls the action, his teams tend to get a great shot, possession after possession after possession. And he understands what wins. So I'm really excited to coach Chris, and I know he's really excited to be here.
He sort of understands how to win. I mean, he's never won a championship. And look, Milo, Dr. Milo, however you want me to address you, you write something which I totally agree with, is all of this sounds nice until you're face-to-face with an Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic. Those are the two faces that should haunt the Golden State Warriors every night, because you're going to have to go through one and maybe both of them if you want to win a 5th title in 10 years. Everything Steve Kerr just said about Chris Paul right there sounds amazing. Love it. Leadership, talented. Sign me up. Until a 38-year-old 6-foot player gets injured like he does every single year. It could be a huge problem. I appreciate the optimism. I appreciate the flowers and the rainbows and all this pleasantry that's being espoused about Chris Paul. But let's be realistic here. He's 38 years old. He's 6 feet tall. So now I am stoked about this roster for the most part. I love the fact, again, that they signed Dario Saric. They had no one like him last year. I'm loving what I'm hearing so far about Trayce Jackson-Davis. I don't think they really had anyone like him last year. And he's a very mature player coming out of college. People have talked about Steve Kerr not typically playing younger players. Not always true. If they've gone through the rigors of 3 to 4 years of college ball, Kerr will give them opportunities. I also remember players like Jordan Bell, players like Festus Ezeli, very inexperienced getting run. So I think Trayce Jackson-Davis will probably get some opportunities. My point is, I'm more optimistic about this year's team than I was a year ago. A year ago at this time, I was actually very optimistic because I thought the plan was to build off Kuminga and Moses Moody's success, give them a bigger run for the upcoming season. I like the fact that Quindary Weatherspoon was signed up to take on the role that Gary Payton II had. And then we all saw what happened with those two-way spots, and everything collapsed from there with the young players barely getting runs during regular season. So we'll see what happens. But so far, a non-answer from Steve Kerr in terms of who's starting. But at least they're communicating. There was also a reference there to Mike Dunleavy Jr., the GM, talking about how he's been pleased with the connectivity, a term he's used frequently regarding this Warriors team, what he hopes to get from them this upcoming season. He's happy about that, and that's great. So I'm stoked on that too. The Warriors also signed a two-way player. Not a two-way player. They signed a player to a training camp deal. There was a lot of uproar about this. Shams Charania reported this morning and referring to Rodney McGruder. He has not taken that 14th roster spot yet, folks. And I saw somewhere in the chat, someone else referenced that as well. There is no certainty that he is going to make the final roster. But I looked at some of his numbers, and when after a quick timeout here, I'm going to read to you specific numbers that I think explain why the team is interested in the 6'4" Rodney McGruder. Again, not ideal considering what I think most people, when they look at this Warriors roster, envision is what's needed, and that's more specifically size. I know the Garuba signing is being hyped up a lot, but again, this is a player who is just 21 years old. So none of us really know what he's going to bring to the table yet. But Mike Dunleavy Jr. did address the Dwight Howard question. I was very intrigued about that in terms of why the team even bothered to bring him in for 2 days. He answered that question. We're going to talk about Rodney McGruder and play some sound from a game a couple years ago where Draymond Green and Klay Thompson kind of went off on McGruder because McGruder at the end of the game started a little kerfuffle, if you will, and we may or may not get a laugh from that. But first, I need to give some love to a new sponsor for this program. And every time we get a sponsor this big, it always gives me so much hope and optimism for the Locked On Podcast Network. Because when you're pulling in big national advertisers like DoorDash, you know you're doing something right. That's right. DoorDash is now an official sponsor of Locked On Warriors. And look, if you haven't used DoorDash yet, I don't know where you've been hiding. It is a lifesaver. I literally just the other day, yesterday, in fact, ordered DoorDash. If you follow the show, if you're an everydayer, as the network likes the term to be used for the everyday viewers or listeners of this program, you're aware I've mentioned my dad is not doing so well. And I just used DoorDash the other day while he's resting to get him some groceries, some healthy food, which he needs to start eating if he's going to make it. So anyways, but DoorDash is all about getting you items to your house immediately and easily. I love DoorDash. If you're missing syrup for your pancakes, open the app, order some syrup. You ran out of your favorite coffee creamer, open the DoorDash app, get that creamer in your house. With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. It's all about convenience. That's what life is these days, folks. Trying to save time, trying to make life easy. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. I've been using DoorDash from day one. I love it. It's always an extra perk to have a sponsor of this program that I can easily promote, given I actually use it myself. And right now, get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. That is a limited time offer. Terms do apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't forget, that's the code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Everydayers Kylan Mills will be joining me hopefully tomorrow night. Stay tuned for the when of that. Usually make that announcement either on my personal Threads account at DogWild. And the program is also on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Locked On Dubs. So I want to play some sound right now. And I'm sorry if I miss some of the chat comments when I'm doing a live show solo. It's kind of hard to keep up with it. Sinful Truth right here is writing that all these casuals, the fact is, if the Warriors don't get a true big, they'll never win again, period. I don't know if I'm that certain about that. I mean, you might be right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just don't know if it's that much of a certainty, if they're that desperate for a big. But I'm with you. I don't disagree that that they need one. And by the way, Kev, I just started to bring the show down maybe a notch here, but look, life is real. And thank you for praying for my father. And I'm so sorry you lost yours 4 months ago. That's awful. I'm terribly sorry. SG Sports Channel, hello. What is up? So Mike Dunleavy Jr. was asked about Dwight Howard. And I'm really glad someone asked this. I have not even listened to this sound clip yet. I haven't listened to most of these sound clips yet. I want to kind of roll along with these with the same immediate reaction that all you folks are having when you listen to these for the first time. But I am very happy that someone again asked Mike Dunleavy Jr., what's the deal with Dwight Howard? He was here for 2 days and you just let him go and nothing happened. I go, what gives? So here is Mike Dunleavy Jr. answering what was certainly curious to me, and I think to a lot of people, and that is what happened with Dwight Howard.
Mike, can you characterize the discussions with Dwight Howard and what led to, a yes/no decision on him there?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say in general, like we brought maybe 40 or 50 guys in this summer to get a further look at, knowing agents and people around the league knowing we've got 2 roster spots open. So there's a desire to come in and meet with us and play with our guys. And we've looked at a lot of different players, and some of them we'll bring into camp. But, the player you mentioned is just one of many that we brought in and evaluated. And, I think right now you'll know more about who we're inviting to camp in a couple days. But overall, we feel good about what we've done this summer, and we'll keep our options open in terms of who we need to add.
And again, get used to this, all right? These are folks who know how to handle the media. You're going to get a lot of non-answers from Steve Kerr and Mike Dunleavy Jr., and I feel like that was the epitome of a non-answer. Mike Dunleavy Jr. also discussed the fact that the Warriors still have 2 open roster positions, which again, friendly reminder, Rodney McGruder is a training camp invite. That's the deal that he signed. It's no different than Jase Johnson, the 7-footer from Santa Cruz last year. It's no different than Avery Bradley a couple years ago. A training camp deal is not a guaranteed deal. It doesn't mean he's on the roster for the upcoming regular season. So Mike Dunleavy Jr. Addressed what the Warriors are looking for those final 2 roster positions. I'm curious as well. I'm curious if they're even going to fill both those positions. My guess is it's only going to be one of those 2 positions to save themselves approximately $12+ million. But nonetheless, here is what Mike Dunleavy Jr. had to say about those 2 open roster spots.
When it comes to that open roster spot, the guys that are going to be bringing in, having training camp, what are some characteristics that you think is important to fill that 15th spot with?
Yeah, I think, we got 2 spots, 14 and 15. We don't have to use them both, but we're open to it. And I think from that standpoint, if there was a positional need or something that we absolutely needed, I think maybe we've already pursued and committed to that. The nice thing is I think we have good versatility and optionality throughout the roster. So nothing that we absolutely have to do right now. We're bringing in a mix of different players that we think can do some different things, and we'll evaluate in camp. But I don't think we have our sights set on any one thing right now in terms of a guard, a big, a wing, a young player, an old player. We're kind of open, and I think that's a great position to be in, where we have flexibility and can kind of evaluate to see what's the best for our team.
When it comes to that open roster spot,
Sorry about that. Yeah, so there was his answer regarding what the plan is for those final 2 spots. Basically, they don't have a plan. They don't know. That's what training camp is for, and that's where we're going to find out in just a moment. Now, the Warriors did sign a player to training camp, and Mike Dunleavy Jr. alluded to the fact that we're likely going to find out in a couple of days what the training camp roster is going to look like. Media day is a week from today. It's going to be on Monday, October 2nd. I will be there. I'm going to see if I can get some players to record some intros for this program. But regardless, the Warriors signed Rodney McGruder. This is a player who last year, and in fact, for I believe the last 3 years, was a guard for the Detroit Pistons. I think for Warriors fans, he was most notorious for the fact that he got into a scuffle with, I can't remember who he got into the whatever it was. It wasn't even like a fight. It was ridiculous. It was just a couple people talking trash at the end of a game. But what was the reason why that particular game in that moment was notorious was because Klay Thompson was filling in. This was during the season, I think 2021, when he missed the whole year. So Klay came in and filled in as a broadcaster one game. And this happened at the very end. In fact, why don't I play that clip first before I get into why I think Rodney McGruder is being looked at by the Golden State Warriors. There is a reason. I looked at the numbers and there's something specific, but Klay Thompson was filling in as a broadcaster and he's watching his team get in a scuffle with Rodney McGruder. And so he suddenly just starts kind of veering into a tangent and turning into like a defensive player. Here, take a listen real fast, and hopefully this clip won't get me in trouble with all the copyright folks at YouTube.
Everything seems to be okay there.
Clay's figuring out what's going on over there, Klay.
Rodney McGruder.
Oh no, this dude might be out the league soon. He's probably mad about that. Who knows?
Wow. Shots fired.
He's over here checking my guy. You good?
And it was a lot more to it than that. That was just a part of the clip. And then Draymond Green piled on, warning, if you have children listening, I can't remember if this part is edited or not. But that same night during the post-game press conference, Draymond Green was talking about that scuffle as well. This is a player who has been invited as a training camp invitee. Sorry to be redundant there. It's just got to be a little awkward to talk this much trash and all of a sudden you're playing together. But this was Draymond's reaction. Take a listen.
But apparently he was taken up for Wayne Ellington. When the fuck Rodney McGruder become the tough guy of the team? Like, I don't know, man. Everybody in the league tough these days. It's crazy. I've seen a lot of tough guys this year. I don't understand it. And don't nobody do anything. So, like, if you really wanted to do something, you could have done it. Walk over there talking shit like he's a team tough guy. The hell out of here. Fucking tough guy, Rodney. Fucking tough guy. Also, I'm rocking with Juan T. Juan T was about to bring that town bit.
And so thank you, Draymond Green. It was the scuffle was with Rodney McGruder and Juan Toscano Anderson, who, by the way, we still don't know what his status is. He was one of the 40 or 50 players the Warriors brought in. Still have not figured out how a player who just a year plus ago was a member of a world championship team playing significant minutes, and now he's got to try out to make that team, and he's still not on the team. I don't know what's going on there. Let's finish up with Draymond.
Business shit out on him. And yeah, I'm rocking with Juan T on that one anyway. But also, I think it was something that Juan said in the first or second quarter to Wayne Ellington. You ain't got nothing better to do that you still thinking about something from the first or second quarter when you weren't in the game. So apparently,
dude, just keep in mind, like, this is a minute 11 in, and Draymond's still talking about Rodney McGruder. Rodney McGruder is listening to this. He's a human being like everyone else. He's very aware that Draymond and Klay were saying these things, and they're about to play together now. It's insanity. I love it, though. Let's finish up with Dre.
Wayne Ellington must have went over to the bench. I guess he went and told Rodney McGruder because he hadn't been in the game. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's too many tough guys in this league these days for me. But I know ain't nobody scared of no damn Rodney McGruder. Like, fucking kidding me?
Apologies for the foul language there. Blame Draymond Green for that potty mouth. So Rodney McGruder, again, he might be on the team. Now, why are the Golden State Warriors interested in Rodney McGruder? I'll tell you why. Because his overall 3-point shooting percentage is nothing to write home about. It's an even 36%. But the last 3 years, where he spent time all with Detroit, in the 2021 season, the bubble season, he shot 45.8% from three. Now, granted, there was only 16 games, but still, 2 years ago with the Pistons, he shot 39.7% from three. Last year with the Pistons, 42.3%. Now, he missed a lot of games, which tells me that maybe he's injury prone. I don't have enough of a sample size, me personally, to tell you with any sort of expert opinion whether or not he's a good defender. If the Rodney McGruder signing actually becomes a real thing, I'm certainly going to bring some experts on to dissect his game. But my guess is those last 3 numbers I gave you, the last 3 years of how he has shot as a 3-point shooter, is an indication of why the team is considering him. It's because he can shoot the ball. He can shoot the three, and he's posting some decent numbers there. So, but nonetheless, again, it's awkward. It is awkward that he's about to be in a training camp with players who are talking that much trash. Now, I understand that it's a heat of the moment thing, but Draymond dedicated almost 2 minutes of that post-game press conference just trashing him. That was comedy. And the Blasian Warrior adding Juan Toscano Anderson, yes. Kent Bazemore, hell no. I added the hell part. It can't, dude. This Kent Bazemore thing, I do not get that at all. If there's ever a player that I never want putting up a shot in the fourth quarter for my team, it's Kent Bazemore. Stay the hell off the court in the fourth quarter, please. Do not put up any shots for my team. There were a few more sound bites here as we wrap it up. Again, there was a lot covered in these press conferences today. And many thanks again to everyone joining me for the live version of the show. It's a late Monday night. Most of you watching this will be watching the recorded version, undoubtedly. But I want to first start off with Mike Dunleavy Jr. talking about the NBA's new load management policies. We've covered this briefly on the show. Steph Curry will be exempted from that because of his age. Klay Thompson will be exempted from that because he has not made an all-star team or all-NBA team in the last 3 years. But there are certain players who will not be allowed to be load managed because they made all-star teams or have made all-NBA teams. This could be an issue that affects the Golden State Warriors. And Mike Dunleavy Jr. talked about that. Let's hear what Mike Dunleavy Jr. had to say about load management policies affecting the Golden State Warriors.
How do you think you guys will handle this new rest policy that the league is trying to implement?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the parameters are, based around a lot of our stuff in terms of back-to-backs, national TV games, and having 4 players that sort of qualify under the load management rest policy. And, look, the league makes the rules. We'll play by them. That's the best I can say. I do know that, we have a tremendous amount of data and science and input from our players in terms of how much they should be playing, how much they shouldn't be playing. And we've always leaned on that in the past. We'll continue to lean on it, but we've got to, we got to play by the rules too.
Yeah. So again, a lot of non-answers. Jay Docs asks what my thoughts are, and everyone else's for that matter, on Kelly Oubre Jr. I didn't know what the deal was. I know he signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Again, I'm obviously in the minority in terms of at least not minding him. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a fan of Kelly Oubre Jr., but I didn't mind having him on the Warriors. He was a 6'8" player, very athletic. While inconsistent, could still shoot the three decently. But again, he didn't buy into the system the way they needed him to. So good for Philly. I think they got a solid player. And if they got him on a veteran minimum, all the better. I mean, he's not a bad player. He's just maybe not as good as he thinks he is. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. Douglas Mikes asked the question, can you go into the season with 13 players? No, it's got to be a minimum of 14. So the Warriors are going to have to add at least one more player in addition to the two-way deals that they currently have. SG Sports Channel, yeah, anytime you want me on your show, I'll happily come on. Just shoot me an email. Shoot me you can find me. My email address is warriors24pod@gmail. If anyone ever wants to reach out to the show, I'll come on a show anytime. One other topic to finish up the show, just because there was a lot said in the press conferences today. Klay Thompson is in a contract year. Steve Kerr is in a contract year. And Mike Dunleavy Jr. was asked about that. I believe the last time he was asked, about Steve Kerr, Mike Dunleavy Jr.'s response was, it's on the agenda and we're working on it. Nothing's happened since. So he was asked about it again. And here is Mike Dunleavy Jr., the new GM of the Golden State Warriors, talking about 2 key members of this organization, Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson, both entering the final years of their contract.
Both Klay and Steve are entering like the final years of their contracts. How have those discussions begun? How important, or is it important to get it going earlier, or just table that later time?
Yeah, no. So I mean, with those guys, I mean, the main thing is it's good is on both sides. I think there's a desire to extend or be back, or make sure those guys are in the fold with the Golden State Warriors moving forward. So I think both sides feel that way, and when you're working off of that idea, I think you can come to a deal. And so hopefully we can do that. In those scenarios, there's no real specific timeline in the immediate future that we have to abide by. So we'll continue to have conversations, but the main goal is to, secure those guys moving forward. And, I think they feel a little bit of the same, but we're optimistic, and I think we're in a good place there.
Another non-answer. Steve Kerr also was asked about the fact that he's officially a lame duck coach. Let's hear what non-answer Steve Kerr had to say about the fact that he's in a contract here. Here's Steve Kerr.
Your contract is obviously going to be kind of an early season topic. What is your where is that at from your perspective, your contract, and would you be comfortable coaching the season on an expiring deal?
Yeah, I feel great about my position here, and I want to be here. I know Mike and Joe want me here, and so I'm very confident something will get done, but I'm not stressed about it at all. And, I'm perfectly capable of, coaching, whether I have 1 year left or an extension makes no difference. So, but I fully expect to be here.
Your contract is obviously.
So, and I'm very curious. I really wish this is one of those moments where I really wish I could read Joe Lacoba's mind, because on one hand, there is no doubt that Lacob loves Steve Kerr. He just let Steve Kerr hire his son to run the G League team. Side note, by the way, I was talking to one of my oldest, dearest, closest friends from college, Jerry Perez, who lives in San Luis Obispo, California. For your older folks out there who are familiar with Larry King, who used for decades had a talk show on CNN. He'd always get callers on his show. And for some reason, there would always be someone from San Luis Obispo calling in. And he'd always enunciate it in such a comical fashion. He'd say, "Hey, now here is Grace from San Luis Obispo." Anyways, that's a horrible impersonation. I apologize for that. But my friend Jerry Perez brought up the fact, and I've heard people joke about this, and it went over my head for apparently years until just now. And maybe someone in the chat can confirm this as we're wrapping up the show. Is Steve Kerr's son, his name is Nick. Is it short for Nicholas? Because if it's not, I don't know. All I can say is my friend Jerry made me aware of what's been clearly a running joke for a long time. I've seen people joke about it. I never understood it until tonight. That Steve Kerr's son, Nick, it's an interesting name. I'll leave it at that. But I'm hoping it's short for Nicholas. So anyways, yes. And Douglas Mikes, can we laugh at the Cowboys for a minute? Of course. Screw the Cowboys. A few things in the chat here to wrap up real fast. But yeah, AC, I think you're following what I'm saying as well. Is it Nicholas Kerr? Please tell me it's Nicholas. Anyways, some chat questions I highlighted here. I want to get to before we wrap this show up tonight. I already answered the Kelly Oubre Jr. spot. The Blasian Warrior writes, "Who's left that the Warriors can pick up for the last two roster spots, Cyrus?" Well, if I'm GM, I'm looking at Nerlens Noels. I'm looking at Bismack Biyombo. I'm looking at someone who can give the Warriors anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes in the middle of a game to rest your other bigs so that the important players who you're playing in the fourth quarter are fresh and not in foul trouble. But I don't know if that's the direction the Warriors are going to go. Douglas Mikes, I'm glad you asked this. Is Glenn Robinson III being invited to camp? I think he's one of the best options if he's in shape or healthy. Again, as Mike Dunleavy Jr. said in the press conference today, in the next couple of days, they will announce the training camp roster. If the team is not going to sign a big to that 14th roster spot, Glenn Robinson III is my number one choice. I am 100% with you. He already knows the system. He's an athletic freak. In my opinion, he's a good basketball player. I would not mind him at all for that 14th spot. Sinful Truth writes, "I have said this many times. The NBA and Nike does not want Curry and Under Armour ever winning another chip. Why do you think Curry has never had a true big? the NBA truly won't allow it. I think you're going a little over conspiracy-ish in the terms of the Warriors not getting a big because of the NBA discriminating against Under Armour in favor of Nike. But in terms of the big picture, look, nearly every agenda has a financial motive behind it. In journalism, one of the most classic jargons is follow the money, because that's usually where you find the answer. When it comes to the NBA, the relationship between the NBA and Nike is so mutually beneficial between those two sides when it comes to making billions of dollars. So it would not surprise me in the least bit if there was some sort of favoritism in some regards given to Nike athletes over, say, Under Armour athletes. But in terms of the Warriors not getting it big because of that, I don't think that's true. Zolas writes, this is the last one I had starred. I honestly think the Warriors can win without a quote-unquote true big. They handled Jokic pretty well in the 2022 NBA playoffs. I think they have a pretty good collective size at the moment. The key difference between 2022 and now, one is Nikola Jokic now has world championship experience, meaning he's a lot better than he was. Two, the Nuggets are bigger now than they were then. Three, other teams are much bigger now than they were then. When you look at the conference finals that season, the 4 final teams, the only true legitimate dominant big was Bam Adebayo, who stands 6'9". 6'9" you can deal with. 7 feet, 6'11", with a complete a tool set, a 5-star player like Nikola Jokic or Anthony Davis. The Warriors weren't dealing with that deep in the playoffs in that championship run. And they're probably going to have to deal with that now. And it's not just those two teams. The West is stacked. You look at the Sacramento Kings, how big they are. Look at the Memphis Grizzlies, how big they are. Look at the Clippers, how big they are. So it is a real concern. And I'm just really hoping that this concern that a lot of us have doesn't come to fruition on day one. And we're just looking at this going, wasn't it obvious to us? Why was it not obvious to the Warriors front office? I'm praying that that is not the scenario that we see, but it does concern me. All right, I got to wrap this show up real quick, but now I'm seeing some Nicholas Kerr. It is okay. So SG Sports Talk channel. Again, I'll come on your show anytime. Please just shoot the invite. Let's get in touch. It is Nicholas Kerr. Okay, that's a relief because Douglas Mike's adding that Nicholas Kerr had his teacher sweating every time he did roll call. All right, we're done here. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you for joining me as always. Kyla Mills will join me tomorrow night. And I hope everyone out there is doing well. This is a crazy world, folks. So do what you got to do to make yourself happy. See you again soon. Thank you, everyone. It's fun as always. And we'll be back at this soon. Take care. Bye-bye.